There is something that happens the moment you finally understand why you are the way you are. A wave of relief so strong it feels like healing. You name the abandonment wound, the critical parent, the pattern you never chose, and for a moment, everything makes sense. But then weeks pass, and you are still chasing the same unavailable people, still shrinking under the same voice in your head. Understanding your pain and metabolizing it are two completely different things, and most people never learn the difference. That relief you felt was real, but it was the relief of finally seeing the map, not arriving at the destination. Insight gives you a name for the cage you've been living in, but it doesn't open the door. The naming feels so much like progress because, for your nervous system, clarity is genuinely soothing. But soothing is not the same as healed. And that gap is where most people quietly get stuck. Naming something gives the brain a hit of relief that feels almost identical to actually solving it. That neurological reward is real, and it's one of the sneakiest traps in the whole healing process. When you finally understand why you shut down in arguments, your nervous system exhales like a problem has been resolved. But the pattern is still there, coiled up and waiting for the next trigger to arrive. Insight creates a story, and stories feel like conclusions, even when the behavior underneath hasn't moved an inch. There's also a social layer to this. Telling people your trauma earns you recognition, and recognition feels like progress. The validation you get from being understood can quietly substitute for the harder work of actually changing anything. Therapists have a name for this. They call it insight without integration, and it's remarkably common. You can build an entire identity around understanding your wounds without ever closing them. The map is not the territory, and knowing the map by heart doesn't mean you've traveled anywhere. Someone can trace their anxiety back to a specific childhood bedroom, a specific voice, a specific year. They can name the wound, map the pattern, and explain it to a therapist with real precision. And then go home and do the exact same thing they've always done. That's not a failure of intelligence. It's a failure of something harder to build than knowledge. Understanding why you flinch doesn't stop the flinch, because the flinch lives in your body, not your vocabulary. A person can know they pick unavailable partners and still feel the pull toward another one. They can recognize the spiral coming and still fall into it. The brain that understands the pattern and the nervous system that runs it are not the same system. Insight travels fast. Change travels slow, through repetition, through friction, through 100 small moments of choosing differently. Knowing the name of your cage doesn't unlock the... Healing isn't a thought you have. It's a practice you repeat, over and over, until it becomes automatic. It lives in the choices you make when you're tired, scared, or falling back into old patterns. It lives in the moments you pause before reacting and choose something different instead. Grief is part of it, actually feeling the losses you spent years explaining away with clever language. Nervous system regulation is part of it, teaching your body that safety is real, not just a concept you understand intellectually. Repair is part of it, going back to the relationships you've damaged and doing the uncomfortable, humbling work of rebuilding trust. Self-compassion is part of it, not as a soft excuse, but as the fuel that makes sustained change possible at all. Awareness gave you the map, but the map is not the territory. The territory. Walking the actual ground. That's where healing lives, and it starts the moment you